Welcome back to 64-bit Meta. It's time for the second build update for the Soulwrest Phantasm League starter. In the previous video, before the launch of the Mirage League, we talked about the removal of Awakened Support Gems and how we could potentially replace them with the new Exceptional Support Gems. Well, turns out this was a GGG classic, disguising a nerf as a buff. Because there are no exceptional supports to replace our damage loss with. Basically, minion builds across the board have been nerfed, especially poison minions, because they relied heavily on the awakened versions of poison support gems. So before we get into specific changes for the Soulwrest Phantasm builds, both for this league and going forward, we need to talk about the Mirage League in general and the changes to the Atlas. Spoiler, I find these changes a bit of a mixed bag. First up, the league itself. Mirage is not an inherently profitable league mechanic. Instead, you need to juice your maps to make it work. Conceptually, I'm totally fine with that. I love that even. I've been running Ritual, Abyss, and the occasional Breach and Ultimatum. That, of course, gets duplicated effectively, especially if you're running those empowered Mirage maps that copy the entire map. But the thing that's irking me this league is the new Atlas progression. I only had like 24 maps completed, and I found myself in tier 16s and Zana memory threads. That is ridiculously fast, and while that doesn't have to be a bad thing, it doesn't necessarily feel intended, because I hadn't even made my way to the new Atlas areas where you have to insert boss fragments. So I was at a point where I was already able to run semi-juiced tier 16s, but my defenses weren't exactly prepped for that yet. Now, I still attempted to run semi-juiced tier 16s, and yeah, let's just say that we can insert the obligatory meme of the guy on the bike inserting a stick in the wheel, but it's me with the Soulwrest Phantasm staff. Yeah, I hold myself responsible for unnecessary deaths, but I still find the new progression a bit too fast. It doesn't feel correct. On top of the fact that you can't utilize boss fragments without being in the specific locations on the Atlas or having made your way to those locations, instead of just being able to slap them in the map device and going from there. The TLDR is that the Soulwrest build still performs well, especially with some tweaks that I made both off stream and on stream. But during the weekend, I found myself struggling a bit to catch up to the content I had access to, specifically in terms of defenses. So yeah, your experience may vary, of course, either with the Soulwrest build or another build, obviously, but it is something to keep in mind. In any case, GGG is working on improvements to both the league mechanic itself, like being able to keep your shrine buffs and making minions more consistent, as in that they'll be able to transfer to the new Mirage instance. So there's that to look forward to. I think that's enough said about Mirage in the new Atlas. I think it's time to now dive into Soulwrest itself and the improvements and nerfs that we have to keep in mind for future leagues. Alright, let's go over the crucial changes that I made to the Soulwrest build based on my experience this weekend in the Mirage League. On my left, we have the original path of building that I posted before the launch, and on my right is my current imported character that has the same configuration, but with the addition of some crucial defense tweaks. First up, in order to make that happen, we lowered our damage from roughly 11.5 mil to 10.8 mil. Not the end of the world, and definitely worth it, because if we look at our effective hit pool, that has gone up by more than 50%. And that's not even taking into account flasks, because if we enable those on both ends, as you can tell, we're looking at even more than 50% in terms of improvement if we account for flasks as well. This has made a huge difference for running tier 16s, because yeah, tier 16 maps are now the new baseline. You need, as a result, better defenses than before. So I made that happen with 4 crucial changes. Let me go over them in game real quick, with the first one being a Watcher's Eye with 2 Chaos Res while affected by Purity of Elements. This was a higher roll, close to the maximum, which is 50. This one cost me 6 Divine. Ironically, the most expensive piece of the build, depending on what you're looking for. If you're able to craft your own large cluster jewel, like this one with increased attack speed and increased effect, and if you're able to craft your own medium cluster jewel with Blessed Rebirth and Life from Death, you can save quite some money. I was able to pull that off on both ends, twice even with Blessed Rebirth and Life from Death. But otherwise, yeah, this is the most expensive part of the build. Is it entirely mandatory? Not necessarily, but it makes it so much smoother, especially if, like me, you're running Ritual and you occasionally come across that Chaos Ritual with the Chaos damage that is quite significant if you're not equipped for it. Now, that is, first of all, a good addition against Chaos. But what about physical damage? Well, for that, I finally incorporated Enduring Composure. With just 1 point, we can grab Endurance, and that means every time we get hit, we generate 4 Endurance charges, basically giving us 16% physical damage reduction and elemental damage reduction, which is huge. Now, I personally got it on a Megalomaniac with Sublime Sensation as well. This is basically best in slot, but you don't have to do this. Instead, you can just grab yourself a small cluster jewel with Enduring Composure and go from there. Those are like 20 to 30 chaos, and this one was like a divine, this particular Megalomaniac. I got somewhat lucky with it, but there's tons of other life notables you could potentially grab. So these 2 changes have made me much more survivable against chaos and physical damage respectively. Now, as for exceptional supports, there is one that I was able to incorporate, and that is Eldritch Blasphemy support. This one has, first of all, a bigger AoE for the curse skills, which is nice to make Profane Bloom more reliably explode. But also, it offers Malignant Madness if an enemy has been in the aura for more than 5 seconds. This is not a direct defense layer, because again, the enemy needs to be in there for more than 5 seconds, but against bosses, that's pretty good, and it reduces their damage by 10% and their action speed as well. Pretty neat. What's more crucial is the addition of Infused Channeling in our Cyclone Castspell Channeling setup. How is that possible? Well, with the new coins that add support gems to skills, I was able to secure a Desecrate with Castspell Channeling. Once it's on there, it supports the other linked skills as well. So you can get it on Desecrate, but also Cyclone, or also Flesh Offering. That opens up a slot, and boom, there goes Infused Channeling. These 4 changes combined make for huge improvements to survivability. And as a result, I was able to cruise through maps, rituals, ultimatums. I just streamed for 5 hours, and it was an incredibly smooth ride. In fact, that particular stream I will link below to showcase what the build's like when running tier 16s and doing a bit of bossing here and there. And overall, yeah, the build still performs well, if you ask me. We've lost some damage that we might get back in 3.29, with the addition of more exceptional support gems. But for now, it is still incredibly cheap to get going, and the damage can scale more than far enough to casually tackle tier 16s and your typical bosses. Uber bosses, I wouldn't necessarily recommend, unless you're mechanically skilled enough, or if you're very familiar with the mechanics of said Uber bosses. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to have to look at a more expensive build to be able to tackle those very comfortably. That's the key here. Yeah, with that said, in terms of pricing, just to mention that real quick, the All's Uprising is currently around 20 to 50 chaos. That's insanely cheap. So even if you were to start now, you can get this entire build going for less than a Divine. And I'm dead serious about that. It's actually great, with the one exception being the Stampede. The Stampede is currently free Divine, and that's a bit of a tricky one, but I still think this is a crucial addition because you don't have to worry about hinder. Your movement speed is always up. It's basically like a permanent Quicksilver that you're running here. And you get immunity to maim, hinder, and other slowing effects that do not affect your action speed. That's important here about the Stampede. And of course, yeah, the second Anoint is also a thing. I just love the addition. And this, next to the Watcher's Eye, is the most expensive piece. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if you do want to push the build a bit further, I got myself a Victorious Influence on stream with a really good corruption. This gave me 5.5% extra damage. And I got myself a Triad Grip with increased maximum life, just for that, bump to get us above 4K life. All in all, yeah, the Ghastly Eye Jewels with good rolls on cold and fist damage, these are about 1 to 2 divine each. You don't have to go this balls to the wall. If you replace the physical damage with something like a higher cold, maybe with some chaos damage added, you'll lose a smidgen damage, but they're way cheaper. You can get the fundamentals of this build going for very little, and then you can jump into tier 16s, especially with your defenses set up properly, especially enduring composure, and then you can just farm the currency to either improve the build or farm for a second character. Whatever you prefer. I was able to make easily more than 10 divine in the stream alone that I had. Probably slightly more even. And that's basically it. Like I said, I can still highly recommend this build. I might update the guide entirely for 3.29 based on how things will go. What I'm also looking forward to is looking into the Broken Elegy. I did some preliminary testing with this staff, and there is a lot of potential here. And we can basically apply the same ideas behind the Soulwrest build to this particular build with the Ceaseless Flesh minions. But Path of Building hasn't been updated yet, so that's kind of a problem. I can't properly test the damage scaling. In any case, yeah, that's it for now. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. I hope you have a wonderful time this league. I can highly recommend it if you're into juicing your maps, so, have at it. And yeah, I will say have an amazing day, and until next time.